On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, Florida Gators are the top-ranked baseball team in the NCAA, and they have a connection to this province. Grand Prairie's Lars Davis joins us. Welcome to episode 118 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. The Florida Gators have become a powerhouse in NCAA baseball. Under Kevin O'Sullivan since 2008, the Gators have made 7 appearances in the College World Series, winning it all in 2017. They were on a path to do it again in 2020, going 16-1 before the COVID-19 pandemic canceled the remainder of the season, and they enter 2021 ranked at or near the top of every media outlet's preseason rankings. A key piece to the puzzle for the Gators over the years has been volunteer coach Lars Davis. The Grand Prairie native and Prairie Baseball Academy product has been with the school since 2014. He was drafted by Tampa Bay in 2003 and again by Colorado in 2007, leading to an 8-year professional career before turning his attention to coaching. We profiled him for a web story back in 2018 before the podcast even existed, so we reached out again and he was happy to oblige in another conversation before his players got back onto the field last weekend. We chatted with the 35-year-old about the team, his journey in baseball, and an interesting connection to another former Alberta baseball player that actually helped him get into coaching. Lars, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Happy to be back.
It's been a while since we last chatted. I want to know right off the bat here is, what's it like having the American citizenship and having that dual citizenship now?
You know, it's really not too terribly much different. Obviously, I wish that, there wasn't a pandemic going on and I was able to make it up to Canada a little bit more. But, it is nice not having the necessity to have a visa or, constantly check in with the Customs and Immigration Services every couple of years just to see where we're at. It's nice to have that freedom to be able to go back and forth. Unfortunately, just haven't been able to use it lately.
And obviously, the COVID pandemic has been wreaking havoc on every walk of life, but baseball's kind of getting back to normal almost in your neck of the woods. Talk a little bit about sort of the excitement after this last year and being able to finally plan for maybe some games in the not-too-distant future here.
Yeah, so, obviously our season got cut short last year. We were just about ready to get into conference play. We got 4 weeks of baseball in. Right before the season ended. University of Florida ended as the number 1 team in the country, which was great. But unfortunately, more for the players than anybody, their season got cut short. Obviously, the pandemic has wreaked havoc everywhere in the world. Obviously, there's a lot more important things in baseball, but, it is great to be getting back into it. We'll start our first official team practices today, this afternoon, actually. So our guys are really excited, and we are looking forward to a season. We've got 3 weeks from today. We will open up against Miami here at home in Gainesville. So we're excited about it. I think our players more than anybody, especially all the guys that haven't been on the field for close to a year now.
What's it been like from a coaching perspective to kind of be able to plan this finally? Because I assume that there's a certain level of excitement that goes along with that, as well as you're not dealing with the what ifs and that you're actually dealing with the here and now.
Absolutely. So, getting back into it, it's great to get back to, as normal as possible, getting the team back out there and prepping for a season. It is a little bit different just from the standpoint of, last year we lost out on, the games, but more player development than anything. It's why we play so many games with baseball. It just takes so long to develop players. And so missing out on, 40 plus games last year, plus summer ball, plus some of the games that we usually play in the fall here is it really not slowed down, but some of our players just don't have that game experience that they could have got over the past year. So from a coaching perspective, we've had to cover a little bit more in a shorter time frame. Obviously, we've had to make adjustments in terms of protocols, the number of players that we can have in a certain area or on the field, distancing, everything else that goes into it. But from a coaching standpoint, we've been really chomping at the bit just to get back out there and get our season rolling.
How challenging is it from a coaching perspective to try to coach in the midst of a pandemic? You don't want anybody to be losing out. And in fact, you're probably hoping to maybe catch a couple of breaks here almost and trying to take advantage of the situation, because not every program, not every student is going to be taking advantage of this downtime.
Yeah, and we are very fortunate here at the University of Florida. I know there's programs all over the country. I'm sure in Canada as well, have lost their athletics programs due to this pandemic. So we are very fortunate to be able to still be able to play. But coaching challenges, they're daily, they're weekly. Obviously, down here in the U.S. with the CDC, their guidelines do change just based on new information, and so we're constantly having to adapt our practice plans in terms of number of players, the time they're allowed to be together, where they're allowed to be together, whether it be indoors, locker room, outdoors, things like that. So in terms of scheduling, it can get quite challenging on a day-to-day basis, but we're making the most of it, and no different than anybody else in any other walk of life. We're doing what we have to do just to just to be able to get back out there in the field right now.
You guys are ranked number one across the nation right now. Does that put a little bit of pressure on you guys? Does it put a little bit of a target on your back, and how do you deal with that?
It will put a little bit of a target on our back. I mean, it's everybody wants to take down the top dog. Everybody wants to take down number one. So it just means that we're going to get everybody's best. From a standpoint, if we put that expectation on ourselves that we can't drop to number two or we can't lose any games, that could be a detriment. But we take it as a sense of pride that we've earned this. We've worked hard. We've got a great group of guys, but at the same time, it's just a preseason ranking. We still have to go out and perform. So we've had seasons here before where we were ranked top to start the year and fell dramatically, and we've been kind of middle or lower in the pack, and won it all. So I think preseason rankings are great, but at the end of the day, we still have to go out there and perform.
What do you like about this group?
Obviously this group is very talented. We've got great players at all positions, top quality pitching staff, but the cohesion, the chemistry within the group it's great. We don't have there's always teams that seem to have little cliques or outliers or things like that where the whole group doesn't get along, but our entire group, freshmen through the some of our graduate players are it's a tight-knit group. There's great chemistry, and the best part about it is they want to continue to get better. They're not resting on the fact that they've been ranked number one. They're not resting on obviously the season hasn't been played yet, so they're hungry for it. They know the pressures that come with being number one, but at the same time, this is going to be I think a really great opportunity for them, and it's just the group of guys is phenomenal.
What do you attribute that, I'll call it leadership, to, that ability to gel? Because like you said, a lot of times there is that the split in the room where there's a couple of people that are not in there. What is it that is allowing them to kind of see the value in being a cohesive unit?
It's obviously it's different. You get guys from everywhere, not just in the state here, but everywhere around the country. And it's a lot what has been passed on from the older crews down. So, we've had success here for a number of years, and it's the culture that's been built. So, obviously, the younger guys get brought into this, and the older guys have done a really, really good job of showing them the ropes. This is what Florida's about. This is what we do. And not only that, we've recruited great players. It's not just the most talented guys. We always want to make sure that we have good people, good students. It's not just the best baseball players, it's the whole package. And so when we bring all of that together, it's really helped make this that really cohesive, that really good chemistry group all across the board.
You've been a part of that program now for a while. What makes it so special in your eyes?
Again, it's the people, it's the players, it's the coaching staff, and it's everybody that's involved with the program. Everybody cares. Obviously, wins are important, but when you're working as a cohesive unit all the way through from administration all the way through the guys that do laundry, they're all part of the same program. Nobody's above one another, nobody's below. It's all we're all peers. We all work together. We're all striving for that same goal, and that unity, that cohesiveness, that great chemistry through the entire program has really allowed us to create or cultivate kind of a program of success here.
Let's talk a little bit about your baseball past, particularly in Alberta. We'll start things off with, and I mean, a Grand Prairie area kid, and you managed to forge quite a career in baseball. How is it that you turned to baseball versus hockey or football or any of the other options that were certainly out there in northern Alberta?
Yeah, and so grew up playing multiple sports, just like all kids do. Played basketball in junior high. I played volleyball through high school. I played at Grand Prairie or GPCHS up there for the volleyball program. So did that, and then I did baseballs during the summer. Volleyball just kind of took over. So volleyball and baseball were the opposite, season sports. I played volleyball in the winter and baseball in the summer. And volleyball, once I got to high school, just kind of took over the time from hockey. I played hockey all the way up through grade 9, so I was about 14. Never really played football, but played basketball, hockey, volleyball, baseball, everything through junior high. And so as the time commitment started to grow for the sports, I just kind of picked the ones that I really, really, really enjoyed. And that was volleyball and that was baseball during the summer. Just as I kept playing, baseball it was so much fun. I always loved baseball. It was always something you can go to the field, you go to the yard all day, and especially how long the days are there in northern Alberta, you could play from 4 a.m. all the way through midnight.
Mm-hmm.
It was you could play literally all day, every day. You needed a bat and a ball and a field, so it was something that we really enjoyed doing all summer long. Obviously had to keep going a little bit further and further south to play. Played down at Prairie Baseball Academy in Lethbridge for a couple of years, and just was fortunate enough to make a career out of it, playing first down here at the University of Illinois, and then professional, and now coaching here at the University of Florida.
Do you remember the moment where you realized that this is more than just fun, that you might actually be able to do something with this sport?
I don't know if it was a particular moment. One of the best times that I ever remember, we were playing actually in Bradenton, Florida. We were playing down at IMG for spring break at the University of Illinois. And I remember having a very, very good week there. And that was kind of wow, I might actually be able to, make a career out of this,
Mm-hmm.
that, I might be able to play professionally and go on from there. In terms of coaching, once I knew I was kind of at the tail end of my professional career, I played 8 years in the minor leagues. Spoke with a manager, Dave Brundage. He was the manager with Lehigh Valley. And I hadn't been playing very much, and sat down and talked with him, and just about how he got into managing and coaching. It was sort of similar that, knew he was kind of on his way out from playing, that, he could continue, but, it might be a little bit of a struggle to continue to get jobs. And I was fortunate enough to be able to get an opportunity to coach here at Florida. And so, when I started here that first year, the head coach here, Kevin O'Sullivan, has been a great mentor. He's been very open about, his coaching, his coaching journey and everything that goes involved with it. And the other staff, Craig Bell, Chuck Gerolman, they have just been fantastic in terms of, hey, this is what you need to do to grow as a coach. This is what you need to do to grow in this business. So it's just been, I couldn't think of a better place to be right now. Obviously, it helps being good, but in terms of, where we're at right now, just the staff here is just phenomenal.
When you were chatting with Dave Brundage, did you have that connection because he had spent so much time here in Alberta? He was a Calgary Cannon for a few years,
Oh yeah. Yeah. We chatted about that all the time. So, it was very, Dave was fantastic, fantastic in terms of kind of pointing me in the right direction of, where I probably needed to go in terms of my career. So, it never hurts having that Canadian connection. I know I've talked to plenty of guys, older guys, obviously now, that have been through, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Calgary, all the way through, even up in Edmonton. I remember watching some Trappers games growing up. So, it's always nice seeing that Canadian connection, but yeah, no, it's always good to keep that game alive, especially up there.
Absolutely. When you look back on your time on PBA, what kind of stands out for you?
That was really the first time that I had committed to playing baseball full time. Other than that, it was always a summer thing. I would start in May and kind of end in August, September when school started back up, and then I'd transition to volleyball. So, the PBA was kind of the first time that I'd really got into it. I do remember it was January of 2003. I had joined PBA after their fall season. I had joined to come down to the junior varsity team, and I remember the very first day. I thought, man, what have I got myself into? I'm in way over my head. I don't think I'll ever be able to compete with these guys. So, it took a little while to get my feet under me, but to obviously talk to Coach Kubasek and Coach Hubka, and they assured me like it's going to take some time. This is a little bit different, but once I got through that, the first about week and a half, started to get to know the guys a little bit more. Started play with the guys and actually get some practice under me and start doing it full time. It was awesome. But the time at PBA, I don't think I'd be where I am now if I hadn't been there. I firmly believe if I had chose to go to a Division I school or a collegiate program down in the United States early, obviously nothing against any of those programs. They're wonderful. I just don't think I would have got the same level of one, attention, and two, just the volume of work. The ability to go out to the field every day. I was still close enough to home where if needed something, it was only a few hours. Well, I say few, but 10 hours away down in Lethbridge. But the knowledge of the game, growing the game, everything there at PBA was it absolutely launched to where I am today.
How integral was that coaching staff for your development, especially, it is 10 hours away, but it's still kind of that first time away from home. You probably get that homesickness and all that kind of thing that comes along with the baseball side as well.
Oh, absolutely. And everybody goes through that. Everybody has varying degrees of it. Some players have no problem with it the first time. Some, it's a little overwhelming for them. It was great. Like I said, Coach Kubasek was absolutely phenomenal. Coach Hubka was great, and the rest of the staff that went through, a few other coaches while we were there. But those guys were just absolutely fantastic in terms of both personal, professional development. I can't tell you how many times just sat down and talked with one or both of those coaches just about who I was, who I needed to be. And not just baseball, but helping grow as a person. I still draw on some of the stuff that I learned there. The game really doesn't change too terribly much. Obviously, it is growing. It's different. It does change over a period of time. But when you really look at it, it is still the same game. So there are things that we did at PBA that we still do here at University of Florida that we did in professional baseball that are universal across the board. So. I do still draw on that from time to time, and there are still great memories of things that do come up. When something happens here, just man, these guys either have it really good, or I remember doing that while I was at PBA. So
when you look back on getting drafted, do you remember the day, and do you remember kind of what all kind of transpired through how it all came to be?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to be drafted twice. I was drafted out of high school by the Tampa Bay Rays in the 49th round. It was just a draft and follow. There was no expectation of being signed whatsoever. It was a really great honor to be drafted out of high school. And then I was drafted out of the University of Illinois in the third round by the Colorado Rockies. I remember it very vividly. I was playing with the Duluth Huskies in the Northwoods League. We were playing against Green Bay. We were in Green Bay. And I had got a call that morning from a couple different scouts saying, make sure you keep your phone on, we want to take you today, at some point. So I was very excited about it, but, wanted to make sure that I, still fulfilled my promise to be able to play for the Huskies that night. And so I remember I had my phone on me all day, put it down, in the locker room during batting practice. I remember running in after batting practice and checking it. Nothing, no calls, no missed texts, nothing like that. So, okay, maybe it won't happen today. And so I got a call right before we went back out to take infield, said, hey, make sure you keep your phone on. We're thinking about taking you here sometime soon. So, okay, great. Well, no call before infield. So I gave it to one of the pitchers and said, hey, if somebody calls, please make sure that you pick up or you get my attention and let me know. Yeah, not a problem at all. And so went out to take infield. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes, and, walked back up to him as soon as infield was over and, hey, anybody call? No, nothing. And so, took my phone back and grabbed it and checked the screen. I had 15 missed calls and about 70 text messages. Well, it was right before I went out to infield that Colorado had taken me. He just didn't hear my phone ring.
Oh, jeez.
And so, yeah, so I didn't actually get to hear my name called or see my name called or anything like that. I was actually taking infield in Green Bay when it happened. So it was great. The biggest problem I had, I was trying to call my parents. But the problem was is that I couldn't hear anything they said because I kept getting text messages and it kept dinging in my ear, and
Oh,
my
no.
phone kept ringing with missed calls, and so yeah, it was a great experience, but it was really kind of funny. I had to let everything settle a little bit. Obviously, I had to call the scout that drafted me right away. So, but it was a great experience. It was a lot of fun. Things settled down, a couple hours after that. Don't remember how I did in the game. Don't remember much after that, but was obviously very, very excited about it.
No kidding. Talk a little bit about that pro experience and some of the things that not only that stand out for you, but also the things that you still kind of take with you to this day so that you can pass along to some of those kids that you're coaching now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, wouldn't trade the experience in professional ball for anything. It was one of the best times I've ever had in my life. Got drafted and started playing in 2007, all the way through the 2014 season. So, it was a phenomenal experience. There are a few movies. I will say Bull Durham gets it pretty close. The bus trips, obviously, the Durham Bulls are now, AAA programs, so it's a little bit different there. But
Mm-hmm.
the minor leagues are it's a phenomenal experience all the way through. You'll develop, I've developed friendships that have lasted a lifetime. And not to say, some of the people I still talk to all the time are, collegiate friends, and but the relationship that you'll build will last forever. It is a grind. It is playing baseball. You're playing 140 games in 180 days or 160 some odd days. So, I mean, you are playing every single day, day in, day out, which is what a professional baseball season's about. You really get to discover if you love the game or not. If you don't really love the game, if you don't really love the hard work, wanting to better yourself, it's not for you. It is a grind. It does weed people out that don't like it. And it does it pretty quickly. But you get to really push yourself. You get to see who you are, who you want to be, and really kind of push yourself to the top level, playing the game. So, in terms of experience through you get to learn a lot of the unwritten rules of baseball. Is one of the biggest things I remember learning. There are guys that have made a career out of it, that have done it for, longer than I did. There are guys that play 10, 12, 14 years in the minors, get some time in the big leagues, but you get to play the game the right way. You get to learn a lot about the game of baseball. So I will say it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for, guys that want to play one or two games a week and watch a bunch of TV. It's a full-time job. I remember being at the field every day for 10 to 12 hours. That was one of the biggest adjustments. I know collegiate, that we have hours on how many hours a day, weeks or hours per day and hours per week that we can have our guys work. And in professional baseball, that's not it. So, I remember getting to the field every day, sometime right around 12:45 to eat lunch. I'd start work at about 1:30 for a 7 o'clock game. You go through batting practice, you go through skill development work. It's not, 7 o'clock game, show up at 6 and, kind of half stretch and get loose and then go. It's a full-time job. And then, there's stuff after the game, watching video, doing extra work, treatment, stuff like that. And you get up and do it again the next day. So, it is, you do get to learn if you love the game or not, but it definitely is a full-time job in minors, big leagues for that matter.
Even beyond that, I look at it and say you also kind of randomly get a bit of a front row seat to some of the best times of your life as well, and some of the best players that you've ever seen. Talk through some of the players that you got to see through your travels, and maybe some of those guys that you turn your head and go, yeah, that guy's going to the show for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I was fortunate enough to play with Nolan Arenado. It's a household name. Perennial all-star, one of the best players in the game right now. And I was fortunate enough to be able to play with him for a couple of years. when you see a player like that, one of the coolest things about him was that it wasn't, he wouldn't just show up at the field and go out there and, oh, hey, he's going to be there because he's that good. It was, the amount of work that he put in to be where he is at is just absolutely phenomenal. He'd be first guy to the yard every day, first guy in the cage, first guy to BP. He would stay late to hit. He would be there early to hit with the hitting coach, with the hitting coordinator. Like he was there all the time. And then it wasn't just that. It was, he's got infield work to do. He's got base running to do. He's got strength and conditioning. I mean, he worked like you wouldn't believe. And so it was really, really, really cool to see how you got this, one of the best players in the game today, and how he worked to get there. I hate name dropping, but fortunate to be able to play with and against some of the other best players. I remember playing against Mike Trout. I remember playing again, facing a lot of different pitchers, and catching a lot of different pitchers that came up through different organizations. One of my favorite experiences was actually getting to catch the big leaguers that came back down. I remember getting to catch Aaron Cook. He was with us in Colorado Springs in 2013. I remember having a chance to catch him. I caught Jeff Francis he was with us for a little bit. There's a ton of different guys that you get to play with, but getting to see the guys that have made their living in the big leagues come back down and see how they go about their work is a really unique experience as well. That was one of the first times or not the first time, obviously, always know that hard work pays off, but when you get to see these guys that are getting paid millions of dollars and they are there every single day, day in and day out, not just putting in the work to put the work in, but they still have to get better. And so I remember being told at one point that, getting to the big leagues is easy. There are a lot of guys that will make it to the big leagues. It's staying there. That is the hardest part of the job. There's always some minor leaguer that's hungry. There's always some new talented kid. And so when you watch these guys that are down here either rehabbing or they got sent back down because they weren't performing at that level, just watching the amount of work that they put in just to try to get back there it was a really, really great lesson, really great eye opener. And so you got to apply that to your game as well.
I suppose a big part of that too is constantly being a student of the game. It's not just the work, but also the mental preparation. Whether it's as a catcher, you're learning what pitcher's movement is like. You're learning how to field a game and kind of learning as you go and constantly learning as you go.
Yeah, and so that was. I remember going in. I wasn't. I'll be the first to admit I was not a great catcher when I got drafted. I was raw. Might even be too kind of a word for. I was a guy that threw behind the plate just to fill a position I could hit. And that's what I did at PBA. I hit in college, and then when I got to professional baseball, I remember spending a lot of time with the catching coordinators and the catching coaches in the organization that. Learning how to call the game, learning how to be proficient back there. And it wasn't just a one-dimensional game. And that's something that I took to heart. I've always loved catching. The more I talked with the coaches, and one of the big things, I actually started hanging out with the pitching staff more. Before it was always kind of, position players and pitchers were separate. And I actually found myself, being in the bullpen more, hanging around with the pitchers more, being out there during their kind of conditioning, early work, that kind of stuff, just to get to know them, and then just talking the game with them. And I think that was part of the biggest growth that I had over the first couple of years in professional baseball was just learning how to manage not just one pitcher, but your whole staff, how to call a complete game, not just, throwing down random fingers, what to look for in hitters, what to help each pitcher with, what to, when a guy doesn't have something that day, if he doesn't have his breaking ball that day, or, his fastball's a little light that day, how to actually pitch his way through and still get a quality start or a quality few innings out of him. So learning the game, it never stops. I mean, I've been out of professional baseball now. This will be year number 7 here for me at the University of Florida. And so it never, ever, ever stops. I've learned in the last 7 years as much about the game as I have in the previous 7 years when I was playing professionally. So it never stops and it never will stop. And that's one of the really cool things about this game.
What's it meant to you to be able to continue this baseball journey, albeit in a different way, but obviously make a career out of it and be able to do something that you really obviously truly enjoy?
I couldn't be more thankful for it. It was super lucky that my wife works here at the University of Florida as well, and so they had an opening right when I was coming out of the game, and I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at right now. I don't. I'm sure I would find something else if I wasn't doing coaching, but at the same time, I couldn't think of anything else that I'd rather do. It's a joy to wake up and be able to come to the ballpark every single day for your job. Whether it be coaching, whether it be playing. The last 14, 15 years, I've been able to do that on a day in, day out basis, and it's been the best 15 years I could possibly imagine. Just from the standpoint of I get to do what I love every day. Some days are harder than others, when you're part of a team that's not winning or, anything can possibly come up, but I couldn't think of anything else that I'd rather be doing.
I know during normal times you sometimes come back to Lethbridge and Alberta to speak with some of the kids and speak at banquets, that kind of thing. What would your message be to those Alberta kids who are thinking about trying to chase the baseball dream?
The best thing that I'd have for them is go for it. The number one thing is you're young. You're only young once. The sad thing about baseball is there is a window, and it's really from about 18 to even on the outside 40. So you got about 22 years where you can really, really chase this big league dream. And when you really boil it down, it's probably only about 10 years that you really have to chase from the time you're out of high school to the time you have a chance to make it to the major leagues. So, you've really got this small window of opportunity. I'm not unique in any sense of the word that, I was more lucky or more fortunate. If you put in the hard work, you have the chance to do it. One of the big illusions that I had coming out of high school was that, you had to be a Division I player. You had to be a top recruit or drafted out of high school to make it happen. And the fact of the matter is you don't. Everybody develops at a different rate. I saw that obviously as I matured a little bit, as I grew a little bit older, but I was not ready to play professionally. I wasn't ready to play Division I baseball out of high school. I never would have made it if I would have had an offer to go. I was not ready to do it. I was fortunate enough to be able to play almost every single day at PBA. I was fortunate enough to then be able to play every day at Division I school when I was ready to go a couple of years later. So, I think the biggest message that I've got is, or I guess it's, kind of bullet point messages. One, it's going to take work. There's no substitute for it. There's no magic pill. There's no, you're going to wake up tomorrow and it's not going to happen. It's step by step. It's little gains, it's setbacks, but the work has to be put in there. The second thing is really, you have to be ready for it. You may not be ready today. You may not be ready tomorrow to make that jump to the next level, whether it be, from high school to junior college or junior college to Division I to professional. You may not be ready to make that jump right away, but don't stop working towards it. One of the worst things, and although it may sound, is cliche, there is a lot of truth to it that, I would be really remiss. I would really hate to have looked back and said, man, I wish I would have worked harder when I was 18 at PBA, or I wish I would have worked harder when I was at Illinois, or I wish I would have done more here or there. I'm very fortunate that I can look back and say, you know what, I gave it everything I had. I worked, I learned, I did everything I could to make it. I was fortunate enough to play professionally for 8 years and, fortunate enough to be coaching for the last 7 here at Florida. So, as long as you give it your all, you can at least hold your head high, even if you don't make it. Even wherever your career ends, as long as you put everything that you give it your whole heart, you give all your effort and everything, you dedicate yourself to it. At the end of the day, you can at least say, hey, you know what, I did it. I gave it my all, and let the chips kind of fall where they may.
Final question for you, Lars, and I ask this of everybody: what does the game of baseball mean to you?
It really means everything. I In my case, it literally does mean everything. Without baseball, I wouldn't be down where I'm at right now. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have gone to school at Illinois. I wouldn't have played professionally with all those experiences. My friends, my career, it literally is, everything to me. So, again, would I have done something different? Absolutely. And nothing wrong with staying in Canada. My parents still live there. My sister still lives there. But, like I said at the beginning, I wouldn't trade this for anything in the world. I've been married now. This will be year number 11 for me with my wife, Katie. So, it literally means everything to me, and I wouldn't trade it in for anything else in the world.
Always appreciate catching up with you, Lars. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast, sharing the story in audio form, and all the best heading into the 2021 campaign.
Not a problem at all. Happy to do it.
Thanks again to Lars Davis for joining us this week, and thanks to all of you for downloading and listening. Don't forget to leave us a rating and review on your podcast provider of choice, as those actions help spread the word about what we're up to. Until next time, thanks for all of your support, no matter the platform of Alberta Dugout Stories.